Next up we got Mike. He works here at 99 Designs and one of the developers here. He's become a bit of a JavaScript evangelist, and he's definitely championed some trying to push through some I don't know, JavaScript best practices and standards, so which is really good. Today he's going to be talking to us about getting sourcey with JavaScript. We'll let that happen right there.
As if JavaScript wasn't sexy enough already. Alright, so yeah, just jump straight into it. Michael, Zypher on Twitter, as Mikey mentioned, I work here. JavaScript lover and pizza eating champion. You'll see me out later. It's my first talk, so first of many, bear with me. I do have a tendency to speak incredibly fast, so if I see your eyes glazing over, I'll slow down. Developers have problems. These are just a few. Many relate to JavaScript, and the last one I broke, I apologise. JavaScript is powerful. That is 800, it's like 600 bytes of JavaScript, and we'll get the Mona Lisa. Try doing that in Java. Love it or hate it, it's everywhere. And now that it's on the server side, there is no avoiding it. And as for most of us web developers here, we run it every day. Sure, most of us actually hate it. I love it. Performance is key these days. Debugging JavaScript is a pain, the best of circumstances. With performance, we're now minifying stuff, concatenating stuff, trying to find what you're looking at. I ran into it today using PL Uploader. Just not fun. You end up with 20 files now become the one file, all in one fantastically long line. Results in this. That's a sample of the jQuery code. I think that is the jQuery code minified, the most part of it that we use, and there's a bug there. Yep. So, many of you guys my new favourite tool. Second to this, what I'm about to show you. So if you actually use Chrome Web Inspector, you have a thing called pretty print, which will actually space it out for you and give you a pretty printing of it, but you still have single letter variable names and absolute gibberish, which you can't reverse engineer the code, it's minified, that's what it is. What if I told you you could debug the code the way you wrote it? This is the power of source maps. So source maps is something, as far as I know, Google are pushing. It's now in the 3rd version of it. And it's at a point now where essentially what happens is a source, as part of your generation stage, when you concatenate for your pre-processing, you can create a source map file, which is its own language, I guess, that maps the minified files to the destination files they came from. And really what you get, I'll show you a live demo. Trying to keep mine really quick. This is a demo put together by Paul Irish, JavaScript evangelist, works on jQuery and Chrome. I'm not sure if it's going to work full screen, but we'll give it a go. It does, awesome. Make sure I have this turned off, it's going to be really embarrassing. Enable source maps is off. Awesome. So we're all familiar with this screen. This is the JavaScript for this site. Rolls right off the tongue. We wanted to debug this in production, which we all know as developers, stuff magically breaks in production, never breaks locally. Probably the most important thing to show you is at the bottom of this file. It's this little string here saying source map and it maps to a URL, or in this case relative asset. So that will get appended to the file. You enable source maps now. It's an experimental Chrome feature. There's a patch in Mozilla. I don't know if it's actually in the core yet. There's a developer patch for it if you want. You can use that now. See, there are 3 individual files: the jQuery file and 2 scripts that are written. So it's actually only loaded the original script, but from that it's in the source map. And because I have the source map URL and because I have Web Inspector open, so there's no performance hit unless you're actually debugging your site and have the preference turned on. It's looked at that source map, found all the actual assets and pulled them back. So what's actually rendering is the compiled version, but still breakpoints here. And it'll map the compiled version to my code, and I can debug it live. Which I find is all kinds of impressive, and I've used it thoroughly just this week. Yeah, simple JavaScript. It's the general gist. There are multiple ways of doing this now. A lot of people aren't too fond of what I showed is that sourcey at the bottom. So it can now be interpreted as part of a HTTP header that each service can do automatically. Or you can do it locally using something like char, which is going to be a lot of fun to play with. Generating the source maps is the tricky part. Currently there is one tool I know that does it well. It's written by Google, because it's a Google spec, the GWT compiler. So you can run that locally on your servers. At some stage we may start doing it as part of asset bundling, so we can debug locally. Yeah, the source file, the compiled files are about twice the size, or close to twice the size of the asset you're generating, but unless you're looking at it, no performance hit to your users. It's an invaluable tool as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, there is a spec for it. We'll start seeing more and more browsers over time. And hopefully IE10 will get on the ball. And that is source maps. I don't have an ending slide, I want to catch
Any questions for Mike here on the source maps?
Yep.
Is that in Safari as well, or is it Chrome?
Probably not. So Chrome commit upstream to WebKit. Safari, as far as I know, don't or do rarely. So the version in Safari is significantly behind the version in Chrome. And you can check that by checking the About tab, and it will actually give you the actual compiled version of WebKit inside Safari. So I'd be surprised. Could be by now. The original time, the first time I saw this was at I/O Lightning Talks about 6 months ago. So
Yeah.
So Google Lightning Talks, sorry. South by Southwest. So maybe, I doubt it. Last update I noticed Safari was 5.1, which was a while ago.
Is there a gem for it?
There is a gem to create source maps. I guess you have the same problem that you do with things like SAS, is that the gem can get out there with the spec. You know, this is the third version of source maps. The original versions were massively bloated to up to like 300 to 400 times, 300 to 400% of the original file. You know, the work they've done, the new language they've compiled it down to is incredibly small, but there's no guarantee that gem is going to work with the browser spec. I guess what I mentioned, the real power of this stuff is that the reasoning behind it is people love things like preprocessors like SAS. What this will allow you to do is actually deliver CSS to your clients without pre-processing. So you'll be able to actually download the SAS assets, but the browser itself will source map that and turn that into CSS. And again with CoffeeScript if you're that way inclined. So that's kind of the real power behind it. Eventually you better run Ruby natively in your browser if the browser starts to go that way. So there is initial work to bring SAS and CoffeeScript into the browser. Chrome are working on it, so before too long.
So is this source map file mapping individual lines and from individual files to different characters in the actual minified file?
So it's fun. It's a compressed language that actually each line builds upon the previous line, so it's all relative deltas, and it's using base64 encoded, of course called VBL, some sort of weird language. Essentially what happens is each JSON chunk, it's a JSON object, each object inside the object maps to a line relative to the previous object and a character. And inside that they split it up by each line, so you can actually you can map to any line and any character in that map. I guess that's supposed to do with the size of it. So the one disadvantage, I guess, of this is do live debugging. You can't do expression watching, purely because expressions just don't exist at the time. And that's kind of a flaw in the standard they're working around. Whether they'll get to it, we don't know.
So that means that this source map file has to be generated at the time of minification?
It does, yeah. So it's only relative to the current file that you're looking at.
Any more questions?
Has Firefox and Opera even talked to Google about picking it up? Or
so Firefox working on it. It's on HTML Rocks. Firefox developers have a patch and a blog post I saw about 3 months ago. that may have made into Aurora by now, but
So it is kind of
it's a
an
developed
official
patch.
patch.
So it's an official spec.
Yeah.
Google are pushing the spec, they're working on other engineers with it. I think some of the Mozilla guys helped with version 2, so it's just a matter of knowing when something doesn't completely work yet. Then you play catch up and expand the bug.
So by the spec you meant, with the source maps, there's source from, well currently it's JavaScript that you were talking about, maybe mapping from Ruby
So-
and potentially other CSS and
So the trick's going to be, the main trick is, the JavaScript stuff is easy. The trick is developing a language that's small enough and robust enough for the source map.
Yep.
That's where it gets tricky. So things like Sass are easy because browsers do CSS. Things like CoffeeScript are easy because of JavaScript. You know, things like Ruby, you know, if there's enough demand for it, it may come in.
but the current focus is JavaScript.
The current focus is getting it working. You know, getting a language that works. Right now it only works, you know, JavaScript to JavaScript.
Yep.
But you know, Chrome is actually currently working on Sass, so it is a work in progress.
Yep.
I have a funny feeling CoffeeScript will come first, just because it's in JavaScript.
So do the tools like Sass and CoffeeScript, do they need support to generate these, or?
So the generation will be done at the time of your pre-processor step when you deploy, I guess. So in that case, part about bundling.
So to get support for like CoffeeScript debugging, you need CoffeeScript would need to support generation of the source map. Is that how it works?
Is it? They check for it. I guess so. There's actually a live demo. If you check HTML rocks, it actually shows live CoffeeScript running in the browser, and Paul Arish has a cool video showing serving CoffeeScript and looking at the live JavaScript and also looking at the CoffeeScript in the web inspector.
So I guess that'll mean that you get proper line numbers in stack traces. With
You do.
CoffeeScript?
So in the case of CoffeeScript, you'd actually be viewing, when you debug, you'd be viewing the actual CoffeeScript file. You don't view the JavaScript.
It's kind of cool. We'll leave it at that then, eh? Any more questions before we? Good. Thank you very much.